Hello guys, Colin here, and today I'm tackling your TATAs, the questions that at this stage you're too afraid to ask. I've had more than one inquiry regarding the difference between coil tapping and coil splitting, and I think this will make an excellent TATA topic. This one is a particular pet peeve of mine, so I'm more than happy to address it in the hope that people will start to use these terms correctly. Not just gear users, but also gear manufacturers who should really know better. When talking about guitar pickups, the terms coil tap and coil split are quite often, if wrongly, used interchangeably. The most common usage is in reference to humbucking pickups. Humbuckers, as covered in previous videos, are two coils of copper wire with inverse magnetic polarities, allowing them to cancel hum in the signal while also providing a more powerful output than single coil pickups. However, because humbuckers consist of two coils, it is possible to wire them in such a way that you can turn one of the coils off, removing the hum cancelling ability, dropping the output, and producing a sound closer to a conventional single coil. In order to do this, you require a humbucker which has what is called 4-conductor wiring. Essentially, the start and end of each coil have their own associated wire so that you can wire each of the coils individually, unlike in vintage humbuckers where the two coils were joined within the pickup itself. So while doing this doesn't get you exactly the same tone as a true single coil, the differences in the dimensions of the coils sees to that, it does get you into the ballpark, so it's a worthwhile switching option to get extra versatility out of a humbucker-only guitar. The correct terminology for dropping one of the two coils out of the circuit is coil splitting. You have two coils which would normally be working together, and you have electrically split them apart. So if you're reducing a humbucker to a single coil, what you are doing is coil splitting. Coil tapping is entirely different. A tapped coil is one where you have a single coil of wire, wound to a certain value, tapped off, and then you continue to wind until you've completed the coil. In a guitar pickup, this could lead to a single coil which has both vintage and modern outputs within the same pickup. The output of a pickup is largely determined by how many turns of wire there are. 5,000 turns will have less output than 6,000 turns for the same coil dimensions, magnet strength, wire thickness, and so on. It's a little more complicated than I'm making out. So if you wind to 5,000 turns, stop, connect a wire, that's called tapping, and then keep winding from there until you get to 6,000 turns, then you will have two pickup sounds within the one unit. If you sense the full coil, then you will get the hot output, but if you sense the tap-off point, then you will get the lower output sound. Now you might be saying, that's just pedantry. Both of these things are reducing the output of the coil to give a weaker signal, so the result is the same. And that certainly could be argued if you're looking at it from an operational standpoint rather than a construction standpoint. So while there is quite a distinction between electrically splitting a humbucker and tapping a single coil, coil taps don't actually arise all that often in guitar pickups. This is probably because it's an extra, awkward step in the automated manufacturing process that most pickup manufacturers use. That, and coil tap just happens to sound really rad to say in comparison to coil split. So a great many people will say coil tap when they really mean splitting a humbucker due to the rule of cool. However, if we move outside of the world of guitar pickups for a moment to look at transformers, then the difference in terminology becomes incredibly important. Transformers are vital to our world. They transform voltage and impedance from one value into another, and without them, our amplifiers and many, many other things simply couldn't function. A transformer consists of two coils of copper wire, a primary coil and a secondary coil wound around a steel core. Now these coils don't touch each other, nor are they electrically connected, but when a voltage is applied to the primary coil, it induces a voltage in the secondary coil. How much voltage is dependent on the ratio between the number of turns of the primary and secondary coils. Let's consider the output transformer in your guitar amplifier for a moment. You may have noticed on the back of many amplifiers there will be a choice of impedance outputs to match different speaker cabinets. It's the output transformer that makes this possible. By tapping off the secondary coil at different places, you can get a different output that matches different impedances. The entire secondary coil is 16 ohms, but by tapping it off halfway, you get access to two 8 ohm connections. Hi, future Colin here. Everything's correct so far, but I just want to interrupt past Colin before he makes a mistake. There are two 8-ohm connections, but both are wired in parallel from the same 8-ohm tap on the output transformer. This means that whether you want to use one or both of these connections, your cabinets need to total 8 ohms. So you can use one 8-ohm connection for a single 8-ohm cabinet, or you can use both 8-ohm connections with two 16-ohm cabinets, as the parallel wiring will reduce this back to 8 ohms total, which is appropriate for the 8-ohm tap on the transformer. Now, I recognise that's all a bit confusing. We will do a video on this, it will be very clear, but the rest of this original clip is just rubbish, so we're just going to skip to the next bit. In this case, the secondary coil of the output transformer is tapped. Coil tapping makes a lot of sense for transformers. We can tap off at different voltage or impedance levels that will be useful to our applications. Amplifiers that are able to switch between 230 volts EU mains and 110 volts American mains voltage have a power transformer that is tapped to accommodate this. By selecting which tapping to use, that one single amplifier can operate the different mains voltages found across the world. However, coil splitting a transformer makes no sense at all. If you were to switch one of the transformer coils out of the circuit, then the transformer wouldn't do anything. It would cease to function, and hence why the difference in terminology between coil tapping and coil splitting is so very important. While many people may choose to ignore it in the context of guitar pickups, it certainly can't be ignored in other applications. Before I close out this video, most of you will be wanting to know how coil splitting is implemented in a guitar, and there are two common switching arrangements. Micro-toggle switches are the most visually obvious. These tiny switches select between the full humbucker and the split position. But for a more discreet look, a guitar may opt for a push-pull pot. These are a switch and potentiometer in the one unit. The potentiometer has two levels of electrical connections which are selected between by either pulling out or pushing in the potentiometer shaft. Both of these methods essentially have the same wiring diagram, just with a different type of switch selecting between the two wiring options. For the full humbucker, the pickup is wired thus, and when the coil split is engaged, we have this wiring arrangement. So to recap, coil splitting is what you do to a humbucker to get it to behave like a single coil, and coil tapping gives you different levels of output from one single coil. If you have any questions of your own that you are too afraid to ask, please do leave them in the comments section below, and perhaps they'll become the topic of a future TATA video. It's never too late to learn. And if you've liked this video and you want to see more content from me, then you can hit that subscribe button. My Patreon's also there for exclusive secret stuff. T-shirts are available, and there's other videos that you might not have seen. But that's all for now, guys. Keep it loud, and I'll see you later. I mean, you can't tap dance while doing the splits.